Welcome to the Landmark Theater's Q&A podcast. In this podcast, you will hear a discussion with stars Sir Ian McKellen and Laura Linney from the film Mr. Holmes, moderated by Landmark Theater's president Ted Mundorff, recorded at the Landmark West LA.
It's almost like being in a real theatre, isn't it?
I know, it is. It's so nice to see a full house here. Thank you all so much for coming.
I was telling these guys earlier that when we announced the Q&A, that the tickets, and they went on sale, they were gone in about, 30 seconds? I mean, there was a long line of people who didn't get tickets. Laura,
Yes.
You sold me that you were a post-war woman who lived 10 grueling years, right? Lost her husband, but are now focused on raising your son. How did you morph into that person, and how did you achieve the regional accent?
Well, Bill, our spectacular director, Bill Condon, who is probably one of both, speaking for Ian as well as one of our favorite people to work with. It's fair to say, yes.
Yes.
He that whole aspect of her character was very important to him, and he really urged me to take a serious look at what it would be for me to consider what it was that she was going through. And when the movie starts, she's just as disoriented in her own way as Sherlock is, as far as her world has been turned upside down. The war has traumatized not only herself as an individual, but the entire country. Something exciting happening on the other side of the wall.
A train wreck.
Yeah, train wreck.
Literally.
So we were thinking a lot about what it was for a woman who has gone through all this trauma, and then, like many of the women of that time, were forced into employment that they didn't expect to have to do, or jobs that they particularly enjoyed doing or were particularly qualified to do. So I made the decision early on, really, that she was just a terrible housekeeper, that she tried her best, but that she really didn't like it. She didn't want to be there. She was resentful. She was grieving. She could care less that he was a famous whatever he was. And then we worked hard on the accent. It took them a while to figure out, the creative team, what area of England they wanted me to come from. So we dabbled a little north, and then we sort of moved south and ended up.
Does that mean whichever one you could do the best?
No. Actually, no. They could have had any of them.
Good answer.
With a little, work hard. You can sort of. I happen to love accents, so, but they sort of went with a softer and softer sound. So we went. So because also Milo had to adapt the accent as well, and he's from outside of London, so that was part of the part of the equation.
Sir Ian. Speaking of Bill Condon, I see this is your second collaboration with him, and you're doing Beauty and the Beast currently with him.
I've done it. Yes,
you have.
Yes.
He has a reputation of being a great collaborator. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Jack, when was Gods and Monsters? 18 years ago, yeah. And that was an independent movie, like Mr. Holmes. Another way of defining an independent movie is to say a cheap movie. People working on it don't get paid that much money, but what they bring to it is love when Bill's involved. And it feels like a family. We know we're up against the odds, and we don't have enough time quite, but Bill's there, always calm, always enthusiastic, always a little bit nervous. But the mark of Bill Condon movies is that the acting is very good. Oh, well, I mean, you've seen the supporting cast in this is full, whether you know them or not, of the cream of British actors, like the man who plays the Doctor, Roger Allen. He's a leading member of the Royal Shakespeare Company, the National Theatre. He'll be playing King Lear next, and he comes along to play the Doctor, partly because I said Woody, but he... But when he arrived there, he said to me, well, working with Bill Condon is like working with an old friend. And that's what it's like. And I'm sorry it's taken 18 years before we work together again. But
Well, hopefully it'll happen quicker for the fourth time, right?
The fourth, yeah.
Right. Bill's been a strong supporter of Landmark, and we love him, wish he were here tonight. Speaking of Milo Parker, did he do a screen test with you? How'd they figure out that compatibility?
Milo Parker plays my son Roger, and he screen tested with
Yes, he
Ian,
did.
I believe.
Yeah.
They found him. This is his second film, I believe. He's very little experience. He's now, I think, has one of the leads in the new Tim Burton movie, which he is filming in Europe somewhere. So he's busy and thriving, and he's a love. He's a sweet, good, kind young man who has a terrific disposition for the world of film. You know, it's hard to find children whose emotional balance is steady. You know, he didn't try too hard, he didn't try too little. He was very present but not demanding of energy or attention. He was quick and sweet and very, very happy to be there, and has a wonderful family, and it was a joy for me to really work with him.
I've been really delighted at how critics have gone out of their way to praise him, until I read one saying that Milo Parker steals every scene he's in. Jesus Christ!
So the changing of your age back and forth was really incredible, and you really played two different parts. How'd you achieve becoming a believable 93-year-old?
Well, it's not as difficult as it seems, you know. If you're my age, you get these occasional aches, and they sometimes last a few hours, and you do something about it, do a bit of Pilates, and it goes away. But poor old Sherlock, no, he's got that the whole time. So you just imagine what it would be like to have every ailment that you do have, but permanently. And the deciding point, really, for me, as with Gandalf, was being able to see the image of the makeup. And don't underestimate how brilliant that is. You can hardly see it, but there it is. 40 minutes to put on, not long, and it's a plasticky, elasticy thing that they paint over, and he pulls your skin like that.
Like rubber cement, almost.
Yes, and then when that dries and you release, there you are, instant wrinkles. But it's a bit cleverer than that. And there's the nose, and they scooped out my hair here. They took that out and brought it back. And then the blessing for me was to be able to look in the mirror and see, that's a Sherlock Holmes. That'll do. And once, as an actor, if you've got an imagination, once you've seen an image of your face, then you begin to understand how you might move your hands, and even how you might speak, and how you might walk, and then it all starts. So I was very dependent on that side of things.
The bees played an important part in the movie. What's it like working with bees?
Well, I when I was told that Laura would be in it and all these other friends, it was absolutely wonderful. But I said to the director, fine, just one stipulation, no bees. I will not work with bees. I don't know anything about them. And he said, you've got to work with bees. I said, oh. You know, I've worked with CGI. So I said we could put the bees in later, but no. No, they had to be there. So I went on a bee course. So I went to a bee teacher. And if you see me in the bees, that's me and the bees. And I didn't wear gloves. Did you notice that? Very brave. And I was not harmed. The bees are too busy being bees to worry about us, you know, as long as you don't get in their way. And I wasn't stung, nobody else was stung. No bee was harmed in the making of this movie. I think we killed a wasp, but...
So, Laura, were you a Sherlock Holmes fan growing up?
I was a fanatic Sherlock Holmes fan. My father gave me the complete stories for Christmas one year. I think I was 8 or 9, and I became just obsessed, as many other people have been and will be in the future. And I have absolutely relished every film or radio play or Broadway production about Sherlock Holmes that's happened ever since. And it's been fascinating to see how the character, we've talked about this, how Sherlock can withstand so many different contexts, and you can place him in so many different areas, and it always works, and you always want more. And it's amazing, and I don't know why anyone hasn't thought of it before, to look at an older Sherlock Holmes and to see what happens there. So it was a real dream come true when the job came my way.
Speaking of the older Sherlock Holmes, did you know Ian was in the film when you...
Of course I did.
Did you?
I did. And Ian and I have been fond acquaintances for almost 20 years, I think. But we have a mutual friend in Armistead Maupin, so we've known each other through him. So it was wonderful to be able to, claim Ian as my own now. I don't have to go through Armistead anymore.
So the novel was called A Slight Trick of the Mind. Why was there a name change? Do you know?
Ooh. I thought, of course I was playing Sherlock Holmes, that a better title for the movie than Slight Trick of the Mind might be Mr. Holmes. And next thing I heard was, yes, it was going to be called Mr. Holmes. I think I wrote the title, yes. Well, I mean, I long to ask each of you, did you come and see this movie because it's about Sherlock Holmes? I mean, was that a part of what interested you? Oh, it was. So to deny that connection, it would be silly. So Mr. Holmes is very good. But I hope what you discovered when you got in that, it's about Mr. Holmes, but it's a particular sort of Mr. Holmes who reminds you of people who perhaps you know. I mean, a big part of my performance is my stepmother, Gladys, 100 years old. I saw her through to the end, and I saw her decline, and I saw her... heard her saying, Ian, why am I still alive? What's the point? Everything's going. I can't move about so much. I can't go up the mountains, which I love doing. I can't read very clearly. Why am I still here? So she was pondering her life and the meaning of life. And, of course, that's what Sherlock's doing. So, I'm wandering on now. But now I see, you hear, someone said, you'll go into the cinema tonight and everyone will have white hair. This is an old people's movie. Well, that's not true. Look at you. And at a screening, I went to a screening this afternoon, and there was an 11-year-old boy and his young brother who'd seen a trailer and wanted to come along. And why wouldn't they be interested in a movie with a 10-year-old in one of the leading parts? So I'm just gabbling on, aren't I? I'm sorry.
Before we go to the audience, you want to tell us about the Sussex location? Was it
Oh, yes.
as beautiful as it looked on film?
You too can spend the night in that home. Yes. It's a bed and breakfast called Wickham Manor in Winchelsea, I believe is the name of the town. Yeah. It's right outside of Rye, just north of Rye, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely, it's as beautiful as it looks on the film. Every location was actually as beautiful. Sometimes you'll film and then they'll really do a number on the negative, and it doesn't look like anything. It doesn't look as it wasn't as beautiful the day you were there. But all of the scenes in this movie, it was just as gorgeous.
And the house that Laura's describing and named was the family home of the Penn family, William Penn, founder of Pennsylvania. That's where he was brought up. it should be on every American's list. If they go to the UK, visit that place, and you can stay the night there.
It's owned by a lovely couple. They have a vineyard, so
they're farmers. Yeah.
There's wine that flows, and there are wonderful animals all around, and it's a lovely place. It really is beautiful.
The question is asking Sir Ian to talk about your personal interaction with the film or with the character.
Of course, it depends on you, really, what you perceive. You know, what I'm giving you is the character as I understand it, filtered through me, my body, my voice, my everything, in disguise maybe, but the spirit, your inner spirit, which I guess you see most through your eyes, do you? I don't know, but, is what perhaps comes through the screen and you in part respond to. I wouldn't like to be one of those actors who was always the same, what we think of as a familiar film star. You didn't want Clark Gable to be in disguise, did you? You were going to see Clark Gable, you were going to see him, and he delivered, and he plays a variation on his own character, perhaps, throughout his career. But I'm the sort of actor who likes to get in disguise, but it's heartening to think that actually what really matters is spirit. Is perhaps what you're going.
The question is, what appealed to you to step into the Sherlock Holmes role after the Lord of the Rings?
I was never offered Dumbledore, and I wouldn't have taken it because I played the real wizard. But yeah. The point you're saying is, what's it like to take on a part perhaps that a lot of other people have played, that everyone's got a very clear idea about? Well, it's fun because, as you can see, this film is playing on the idea that this is a Holmes you've never, ever seen, because it assumes that he was a real person. And, of course, if you go to London, I mean, there's a statue up to Sherlock Holmes in Baker Street, bronze, you know, like all the other generals and monarchs all over the city, and so tourists, I think, see it and think, yeah, there was a real Mr. Holmes. But once you're talking about reality of that sort, then you've got license to imagine. And I like the film because it's about heart and spirit and the possibility of very late in your life. It's never too late to do something. Oh, that's a wonderful, optimistic thing. And the Sherlock Holmes we all know wouldn't have pondered that or wondered about it. He's far too selfish a man. And I also love the idea, the sense that at the end, Sherlock Holmes is someone who you might happily spend an evening with, where at the beginning, why would you want anything to do with that grumpy old man, you know? And the moment when the two of us hold hands in the hospital, some might think sentimental. I just thought that, well, that's the very heart of it, that in the end, whatever age you are, relate to other people, and life will be better.
And family.
Family,
you know,
absolutely.
There's Armistead, our mutual friend Armistead says there's your biological family and your logical family. So in this, it's a wonderful example of how a logical family sort of comes together.
But it's not just the part, of course. I won't make a screenplay unless it's a film I want to see. So what I'm playing in it is less important than that. So it's the multi-layers of the film that appeal to me, and the optimism of it. And someone pointed out, in fact, the author of the novel, that he thought he was writing a story about fatherhood. Fatherhood. Well, now there's the late father, Roger's late father. The Japanese gentleman has a relationship with his father. Sherlock Holmes becomes, in a sense, Roger's father or grandfather. There's another father in it somewhere, and I can't think who it is. But so it's all these layers. That's what appeals to me.
Do you think that your skills of deduction increased after you played yourself?
Did my skills of deduction? I can tell from the way the collar of your T-shirt's falling. That you left it a little late to come to the theatre tonight, but grab the first thing you could find. No, sorry.
Do you have a favorite form of performance?
That used to be a very easy answer. It used to be just always the theater, because I grew up in the theater, and that's where I was trained, and where at the end of the day where I'm the most comfortable. But as I've done more and more film, I find that I'm just as equally challenged and sort of excited by that work as well. If I had to make a choice, it would be the theater, just because it's home to me. And you're able to have a very full career in the theater, particularly if you're female, as you age. So I'm very, very grateful that I have that home base. So I think, and you get very, very close to people in the theater.
And there must be an immediate gratification of being in the theater, as you commented walking in here this evening, when we had only the second time I've ever seen a standing ovation in this theater. So congratulations to both of you.
Well, when I started acting, this is how I did it. No microphone, an audience a long way away. We needed gestures. You can't see my face like you can, so I've got to act with the rest of my body. And every critic who sat on row C said Ian McKellen overacts. Well, they were right in a sense, but if they'd been sitting up at the back, they might have been rather grateful. So, over the years, what's happened with me is that I've preferred working in smaller theatres, so that I didn't have to tell the audience what I was doing. I could allow them to see it. Now, the audience who is closest of all is the camera. Sometimes I think the camera gets too close. I mean, you're going for a clinch and a kiss, and you must have noticed when you get very close to the person you're kissing, you can't see them properly because your eyes don't work, so you close them. But you can do things for the camera that, alas, you can't do in the theatre. So, like you, I've learnt to respect it, and I'm enjoying discovering how to do it. It's for a theatre actor, it's difficult coming up.
And it really is a miracle that any good movie ever gets made. I am always astounded when there is a great performance or a great movie, because everything so has to be aligned correctly. Everything has to be in balance. It has to be the right people, the right time. It's an amazing art form that way. It really is. I mean, and everyone is, whether they want to believe it or not, so completely interdependent. So it's a fascinating thing.
As actors, whether it's Shakespeare, you guys mentioned theater, or just in terms of writing and all the different projects you worked on, collaborating with writers, what is that like for both of you? How do you kind of sculpt character as an actor for both of you?
Well, I'm the daughter of a playwright, so I am always script first. I'm always story first. And when writers really have experience working with performances as well, there are clues in the scripts that are there. That things don't have to be spoken right on the nose. Things don't have to be obvious. You can find these wonderful clues, and sometimes the writer doesn't even know they've written them. It comes through sort of subliminally in a weird sort of way, and you sort of find your way through. So I'm always sort of script first, and I take my cues from how to prepare from the script.
Me too, and it doesn't matter whether it's Shakespeare or a new script by a new writer. They've written it, they've worked on it, they had the ideas, and they must be respected, is my view. And when I'm doing Shakespeare, or Chekhov, or someone who can't be there to attend rehearsal, I just imagine that they've just gone to the bathroom and they're going to come back in a minute and say, what the fuck are you doing with my play? So I love a writer around, and I'm in awe. I remember seeing Arthur Miller walk out onto the stage of the National Theatre. He was publicising one of his shows. Well, you've worked with him, but to see the man who'd written The Crucible in person. I once met Samuel Beckett, the man who wrote Waiting for Godot. For me, it's more than any other sort of star in the world. The writer's the guy.
Fantastic. Thank you again for coming, and remember to tell at least 3 of your friends. We'll go 4 tonight. 4 of your friends. This is an indie film. We need to get the word out, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.